The summer months are coming to a close, but before we enter that crisp fall air, we're going to recap all the board game news that happened in the previous month of August 2021.
The Broken Token is a company that makes inserts for board games to help organize them better, help you with your board game storage. And last month, one of the company's employees, Ashley Taylor, went online to make a statement about CEO Greg Spence, stating that he sexually assaulted her over a long period of time while she was working there, and followed that assault up with a series of mental and emotional abuses, including holding her job on the line if she didn't comply with him, and later even stalking her at gaming conventions. Greg Spence responded to this with a statement denying these allegations, but other employees of the Broken Token since came out and confirmed and said that they believed Ashley and that this sounds like the truth to them. Multiple publishing companies, including Yellow Games and Bezier Games, have also come out in support of Ashley and have cut ties with the Broken Token. They will no longer be honoring any licensing agreements, and they will not be promoting any inserts that they have made available for their games. Here at Roll for Crit, we believe Ashley, and we certainly going forward don't have any planned partnerships or promotion of any kind with the Broken Token. Not that we did much of that in the past anyway, just by coincidence. But it is a harrowing thing, and unfortunately a thing that happens all too often in our society. And as of now, Greg Spence is still up there. There haven't been any further statements made. He hasn't intended to step down or made any kinds of plans of resignation known. They seem to be continuing on business as usual, Broken Token, but it's looking like more and more companies are not going to be working with them in the future.
I'm sure we're going to see a lot more develop over the few months when we see a lot more of the bigger board game conventions happening, whether they are there or not, as well as, of course, when we hit the holiday season. And maybe by then we'll see whether this has made an impact on Broken Token sales or not.
Yeah, I know people on Twitter have been recommending alternatives to the Broken Token, different board game organizers you can check out. I will also take this opportunity to say, please go to Twitter and see what other people are saying about this, but also we have a podcast episode about this. We had a great guest, Amanda Panda, on, who shared her experience with sexual harassment and the board game industry. So that's worth giving a listen to if you want a more in-depth exploration of this story.
Tasty Minstrel Games, the company behind such titles as Scoville and Yokohama, has announced that it is virtually bankrupt. It has let go of all of its employees with the exception of its owner. It's refunding any Kickstarter backers of its most recent Kickstarters, and is said it's not going to be publishing any new games for the next 2 to 3 years, while it hopes to sell off all of its dice, accessories, and leftover games, hopefully to put it back into the black. There were some signs of this seen before. We heard about some rumblings with Kickstarter a while back, as well as hearing how they gave up Orleans to Capstone Games. So, unfortunately, this means that if there are any Tasty Minstrel games you are interested in, you might want to look in picking them up now.
Yeah, they've said they are not going to be printing them in the near future, and maybe we'll see some of those more high-profile titles go to other companies like we saw with Orleans. We don't know just yet, but it's certainly it's going to leave a big gap, I feel, in the board game world. Tasty Minstrel put out a lot of significant games, and maybe they didn't sell to the extent they wanted them to in recent years, but they've certainly left an impact in my mind with the titles that we had the chance to play.
I have enjoyed plenty of them, such as Scoville, including the Cthulhu Realms, which I thought was a really clever take on deck building. Mm-hmm. So hopefully you'll be able to buy some of these. If not, for example, I know Yokohama, one of their most popular ones, has been pretty hard to get. I know there are still some digital versions out there, and maybe that's a way you can still experience their games.
Over the course of the year so far, freight shipping has become more and more difficult, and that has hit board game companies no less than any other industry that has to ship things from overseas. It is getting more expensive, more difficult, more timely to bring these games over here. And one of the titles that has hit, we have learned recently, is Frosthaven, the upcoming sequel to Gloomhaven. Pretty popular game. If you're watching this, you may have heard of it. And Isaac Childress, the designer and owner of Cephalofair Games, has said that he's not announcing a release date anytime soon. He foresees that this game probably will not hit by the end of 2021, and rather than try to eat the cost or charge the backers more, instead he's just going to wait and see how things happen, and hopefully it's going to make its release sometime in 2022, and it may even be that it's kind of a release for one part of the world earlier than another part of the world. It's not going to be as smooth probably as some of the releases we've experienced in the past. So of course this is, some backers are disappointed by this. This is one of the biggest titles, one of the biggest anticipated releases. It's also physically one of the biggest releases. So I think even more than other companies, it's got to be real tough to get these things on a boat.
And of course, it's only been made more difficult by the story we started off with. Because if you backed Frosthaven, you would recall there was a broken token insert. And just as the previous companies mentioned, Isaac has broken off ties and will not be having that be as a part of Frosthaven.
Yeah, so there's a lot of wrinkles here, a lot of wrenches being thrown into the works on the path to getting this game released, which is unfortunate. But once it comes, you will have all the time in the world to play through it. So if everyone just is patient, I guess, if that's too much to ask, I don't know.
The moral of the story, though, is while Frosthaven is obviously the biggest Kickstarter around, do try to have some patience with other board game Kickstarters, because as we said, getting things to other places now is pretty expensive. Magic the Gathering is one of the biggest card games out there, and recently they announced their roadmap for 2022, announcing all the different kinds of sets they're going to be releasing, including ones with a cyberpunk theme and a more noir gangster theme. There's also some non-standard sets, which include an unset based on a space circus. We're also seeing Warhammer 40k, Lord of the Rings, and some secret lairs, sort of one-time rare drops for both Fortnite and Street Fighter, as well as D&D having a Commander Legend set, this one based a bit more on Baldur's Gate. A lot of people are questioning sort of how magic are these magic sets.
Yeah, I mean, they're going out there. They're going all out there with these weird different worlds, which we've seen them dip their toes into, and nobody seems to like it.
I'm torn. Like, I'm not as especially, first of all, the Fortnite thing is part of the secret lair or something like we're selling it for 2 weeks and they're all reprints. So like, it's just going to be Fortnite art. So if you don't like it, don't get it, unless of course they do like all the rarest cards, which they might. And even the Lord of the Rings and Warhammer, it's weird because I'm like, yeah, that's annoying, but I get it. That's their thing. And they both technically have magic in them. So it's not the worst. But the one that is like bothering me a bit more is the one based on the noir, I'm blanking the name of the world, and the cyberpunk, which is based on Kamigawa. I honestly feel like it's a monkey paw wish for me because that's a plane I wanted to return to. But my problem is it feels less of like we're doing something new and interesting as much as we're chasing the cyberpunk interest. So it's not going to be nearly as innovative and interesting take, I guess. But I could be completely wrong. In fact, I would love to be wrong. I'd love for all these things to be great. Why wouldn't we want everything to be great?
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe hopefully like the mechanics are solid if the theming isn't quite what you want it to be.
Yeah, I part of me though is just feeling like it's going to be a bit more Avatar: The Last Airbender movie. Then
that's pretty bad.
Blade Runner, yeah.
That's very bad. You went to the lowest you can go.
I did.
I'm looking forward personally. I hope they someday announce the Magic Among Us set. That's got to be in the works, right? Or maybe Fall Guys.
Possibly.
Just I was joking, but you seem to believe it.
Hey, look, we got Fortnite. I think that means anything goes.
Gen Con is only a couple of weeks away in Indianapolis, and they have announced some health and safety updates for this year's convention. While previously it was stated that vaccinated guests against COVID-19 would not be required to wear masks, although they would be encouraged to do so, they have updated that, and now the policy is that if you are attending Gen Con, you will be required to wear a mask at all times, unless you are perhaps eating or drinking or in certain outdoor locations, whether you are vaccinated or not. Everything else is still in place, including the reduced capacity and spacing out of events, hand sanitizer made available, things like that you would probably expect in this current time period. But still no word, and it doesn't look like this close out there's going to be any chance that they will require vaccinations at this point. Just requiring the masks at this time is as far as they are going to go. But I think for most people, that's a pretty welcome update. And I think for anyone who is concerned at all about attending a convention, probably you're not going if you're that concerned. But if you were going, this may help ease your fears a little bit.
Of course, we are really close, so I doubt Gen Con itself is going to announce any of those vaccine mandates, but of course, places around there or how you get there might. So not to beat a dead horse, do get vaccinated if you can. It will definitely be helpful, not just for you, but the people around you. And another quick note, do keep an eye on your favorite companies. Some of them recently on Twitter have been announcing that they're not going to be at Gen Con anymore and they're canceling their booth. We won't make a list because more may happen by the time Gen Con actually happens. So if you're really hoping to see someone there, make sure you follow them because they might decide it's not worth it for them to go. This month also had plenty of new releases for you to purchase. We've got the Aliens RPG Colonial Marines Operation Manual. This includes an entire campaign for you to bring into your Alien RPG into a much bigger open world if you are a fan of fighting off xenomorphs as Marines. Arkham Horror, of course, has releases. This time it's the Return to the Circle Undone. If you did not know, the Return series actually looks at previous cycles and makes them more difficult. So if you're looking for a challenge for the Circle Undone, you got to pick this up. Then, of course, Catan is coming out with the 3D edition. This one actually has sculpts based on sculpts made by the creator himself, the designer. So if you really wanted to show off how much you love Catan, this is definitely a product you want to look at. Crack the Code is a cooperative game where each player has a set of marbles in front of them. However, you can only see the marbles in front of other players. You have to work together to help find out what colors are in front of you in order to find out and solve the program before you run out of moves and the program crashes. Then we've got Crimes and Capers, High School Hijinks. In this one, your friend has been framed. It's up to you to solve the mystery as well as crack the code, and by code, I mean her locker, and find out who actually framed her. Then Descent finally released its Descent Legends of the Dark. It does change up things. Instead of having one player playing as the Dark Lord, there's actually an app controlling everything. Very big box with very big minis. Then we've got the Fuzzies. This is an interesting dexterity game where you are building a tower based on these little fuzzy creatures. Like Jenga, should someone make the entire tower fall off, that player loses and everyone else wins.
The Reiner Knizia designed Lost Cities now has its own roll and write version that was released. In this one, you'll be rolling dice, choosing colors and numbers, and figuring out how to assign them to explore different paths and complete your adventures and earn more points than everybody else. Then there's $1 Million Script. This is a new party game from Portal Games. In this one player is a movie executive and everyone else splits up into two teams, and they are competing to try to get their movie pitch accepted. So you're going to have to come up with characters, actors, soundtracks, and other details of the film and try to convince that player that your vision is the one that's going to be the most successful. Pandemic has a new release, Pandemic Hot Zone Europe. Hot Zone is their smaller two-player editions that are faster to play. This is the follow-up to North America, so of course this one takes place in Europe, but the gameplay is largely the same as the rest of the Pandemic series. Popcorn Dice is a new one from Van Ryder Games. This is a simple push your luck game where you're grabbing a bunch of dice that represent popcorn kernels, and you're trying to pop the most without getting those burnt kernels because you cooked it for too long. Quest is the new successor in some ways to the Resistance Avalon. It's a social deduction game that comes from that same designer, where it is set in the world of King Arthur and all of those fun characters that we like. And some people are going to be hidden spies trying to sabotage your quests as you play the game. Shards of Infinity has a new expansion released, Into the Horizon. This is a 2-player head-to-head deck-building battle game. Of course, this adds some new game mechanics. It also completes the story of Shards of Infinity up to this point, so if you've been collecting the series, you may want to pick this one up to find out how that ends. And Stronghold Undead now has its second edition available at retail. This was previously an expansion for the game Stronghold. This new version is a standalone game wherein one player is defending their land from a horde of undead creatures.
Those are the news stories and releases over the past month, at least the biggest ones. Of course, there are plenty of other ones that we talk about in our podcast, so you can keep a listen to that to hear more in-depth discussion on these stories and maybe some of the smaller ones that we didn't have time to cover.
Yeah, there's a lot there, plus a lot of cool guests, so you get more insight than just our dumb opinions and ideas. You get a lot of interesting people on there. But overall takeaway from this month, kind of a downer. Not too much good news going around these days, which is a shame. Very, very unfortunate.
Though, that said, it is interesting because usually Gen Con is in this month, so coming now into September where the current Gen Con is, I don't think it's going to stay there, but who knows? We'll probably have a lot more big story announcements and releases and hopefully a very successful Gen Con.
Yeah, let's really hope, at least as much as they can pull off this month. You're definitely going to want to stay tuned to the channel and our podcast because we're going to have a lot of cool content relating to Gen Con specifically, which again is just 2 weeks away.
Right, and we should say we will be there. As of now, we're still going.
We'll have coverage, but we won't be there. We're just going to pretend. Yeah.
We got a green screen.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we're lying. You'll never know at home. And some very big releases, too. There's plenty of stuff to play, even if you're not attending Gen Con. Descent is like the big controversial one. So if anyone has experience with that, or if you have thoughts on any of the other stories we covered today, definitely drop them in that comment section because we'll look at it and read it. And we like to hear from you guys.
Until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been Roll for Crit.
Thanks for watching. Why not like the video and subscribe to our channel? Maybe even ring that bell for us. We're also on Patreon. If you want to go over there, you can support us for just a few dollars a month and get some cool rewards in exchange for that. And we have a merch store. If you're looking for a way to show off your Roll for Crit love on t-shirts, we've got new designs coming out every so often. You don't want to miss any of those. So check out all those links in the description down below.